This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
This is Mike.
And this is Beck.
And this is Nina.
And we are Brew Crime. All right, welcome to the next episode. So this episode, we're going to cover something a little different. Kids that kill.
Mwahaha.
So instead of adults that are shitheads, we'll do kids that are shitheads.
Yeah.
All right, so I think, Nina, you were going to start first?
Yes.
So give us a hint of what your story is going to be.
So I'm going to talk about Derrick Smith. He, and I warn you, is a ginger, and he has no soul. And I wonder if the saying that gingers don't have soul came about because of this little monster.
Well, let's find out.
Wow.
So to pair with this story, we've got Callister Brewing, which is a nano brewery out of British Columbia here. This is the Clifford, the Big Red Ale. It is 7.1% alcohol. Kind of ties in, you know, Clifford the Big Red Dog, kind of a kiddie thing. And this is a bit of a kiddie crime, so perfect.
And it's a red dog, and my person's a ginger.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys feel about the can? It's very blasé.
I like the can, simple. But I mean, it's a brewery that's only started to can beers recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the plain can with just the small little label that wraps it.
Mm-hmm.
And the tab matches.
Yeah, it is a red tab, and the color is red on the label.
Is it not, though, a deer, even though it's called Clifford?
Mm.
Which
That's
is a dog?
Callister's
logo.
The logo is more of like a deer, yeah.
Okay.
And they've always got like an art exhibit going on inside the little tiny tasting room there.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's cool about Callister is it's not one brewery. They have, I think it's usually 4 breweries at once there. So Callister's the main brewery, and then every year they have, I think it's 3 other breweries there. So some of the ones that are notable that in our local scene are Boombox Brewing, which is well known. They're now brewing out of Parallel 49. Superflux Brewing was one of their first. They were called Machine Ales then. They're brewing at Strathcona Brewing, but they're currently looking for a space to open their own brewery. So, and Lightheart Brewing, which is now brewing out of Moody Ales, which is also trying to find their own space. So it's kind of a place for breweries to start, prove that they have the ability to brew, and then a bank might be like, yeah, I'll give you $1 million to open a brewery now. So it's kind of a neat setup.
I was there pretty recently, actually, and the artwork that Callister has up right now is really amazing.
Yeah, they always have cool artwork. This is a really kind of a deep, ambery red color, kind of a tan head on it. It's not a white head this time for you. Definitely got some good malts on that nose. Just a tiny, tiny bit of roast that you get with this darker color.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely some fruitiness. You get anything else on the aroma at all? You don't know?
I don't know. It smells like a beer.
Lots of like caramel on the flavor. There's a little bit of hints of mild, maybe citrus, stone fruit in there. The hops bitterness is low, but there's definitely some herbal hops in there. There's a little bit of bite in it. It's not super bitter or anything. I find this a really pleasant beer.
Yeah.
Pleasant is a good way to describe it. I can tolerate it. I don't dislike it. No, it's nice.
No. Yeah, no, it's nice. And I mean, it kind of sort of ties into your story, so perfect.
Yeah, let's get into it. On August 2nd in 1993, Derrick Smith was riding his bike to a summer day camp, and that's where he came across 4-year-old Derrick Robie. Derrick was walking alone, headed to the same camp as Eric was. Smith saw Derrick and lured him into a nearby wooded area. Once there, Smith simply attacked the boy. Not only did he strangle him, drop a large rock on Derrick's head, undress his body, he also sodomized him with a tree limb. Eric Smith said that the only reason he had to sodomize him was just to make sure he was actually dead. The cause of death was determined to be blunt trauma to the head with contributing asphyxia.
Why the hell was a 4-year-old alone?
From my understanding is from where the block was to where the forested area was to where the day camp was, it was only a couple block walk. And his mom had watched him do the walk before. So this wasn't unusual. It was a routine walk that he did for a couple blocks just to get to the day camp.
I wouldn't let my 9-year-old do it.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, times are different now too, right?
Yeah, they are.
So, yeah. Around 11 a.m. that day, on August 2nd, Derrick's mother went to the camp to pick up her son, only to find that Derrick had never actually arrived in the first place. After 4 hours of investigation, Derrick's body was found. The murder case made national headlines. Of course, a young child missing. What's going on? 4 days after Derrick's death, Eric Smith confessed to his mother that he murdered Derrick. The Smith family informed law enforcement later that night. Once this development made the case received huge media attention, not only because of the age of the victim, but the age of the suspect. Eric was only 13 years old.
That's fucked. I don't know what I was thinking about at 13 years old, but it definitely wasn't killing some kid and shoving a stick up something.
Where was this, sorry?
I didn't include that. It was in the States. Obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no shit. Let's just say Florida.
No, for good measure.
What's his name again?
I got it. Eric Smith.
New York.
No. I'm wrong. It was in New York, in Steuben County in New York. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that changes, but it happened.
I was just curious.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. I was like, ooh, what happened in New York?
Broadway plays mainly, I think.
Yeah.
And sodomy, apparently.
Oh.
Legal and not illegal.
It's naughty.
What?
Not legal.
Obviously, one of the big questions in the media is why did Eric try to kill Derrick? It was clear that Derrick was just a victim by pure chance. It doesn't look like Eric sought out Derrick specifically. It was definitely just wrong time, wrong place. Eric confessed that he took out his rage on Derrick, the rage from bottling up all the bullying and tormenting he was going through. He explained that those emotions weren't directed at Derrick, but at his father, older sister, and high schoolers who bullied him. To quote Eric specifically, "I took it out on Derrick, and he did not deserve that." According to the court documents, Smith was a loner and was often tormented by bullies for his protruding, low-set ears, thick glasses, red hair, and freckles. It later emerged that during her pregnancy, Eric's mother took an epilepsy drugs, Tridione, which is known to cause birth defects. It's been speculated that this contributed to Eric's downfall, as he was often bullied for the size of his ears, and led to what Eric himself describes as pent-up rage.
Same with Spock. Who cares? It's like, you live long and prosper, yes.
On August 16th in 1994, Smith was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to the maximum term then available for juvenile murders, a minimum of 9 years to life in prison. Eric has been diagnosed by a defense psychiatrist with intermittent explosive disorder, a mental disorder caused individuals to act out violently and unpredictably. But the prosecution's experts said it was a rare disorder that was rarely seen at Smith's age. Smith was subjected to extensive medical testing from specialists on both sides. They examined brain function, hormone levels, and found nothing to explain his violent behavior. While in jail, Eric wrote an apology letter to Derrick's family. He even read it on public television. Now, I tried to find this clip, but I just couldn't find it. So I only have it written out, and I'll quote it. "I knew my actions have caused a terrible loss in the Robie family, and for that, I'm truly sorry. I've tried to think as much as possible about what Derrick will never experience. His 16th birthday, Christmas, anytime, owning his own house, graduating, going to college, getting married, his first child. If I could go back in time, I would switch places with Derrick and endure all the pain I've caused him. If I meant that he could go on living, I'd switch places, but I can't." However, at the end of his statement, Smith also states that he can't bear the thought of walls, razor wires, and steel metal bars for the rest of his life. He has also apologized to Derrick Robie in other interviews. Smith has been denied parole 9 times since 2002, most recently in April 2018. He will next be eligible for parole in 2020. After the failed 2012 hearing, the parole board cited a concern for public safety in its decision, and Derrick's parents oppose his release, of course. It makes me feel really awful to think that Derrick's family not only has to live with the sadness of actually losing their child, but they've had to relive this 9 times in different parole hearings.
Yeah, no shit.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's all I have on Eric Smith.
Yeah, what a piece of shit.
It doesn't even understand. And I mean, for the sentence, maybe not sentence, but the diagnosis he had, the explosive violent disorder, how do you ever trust that to go back into public? You don't know what could have triggered this.
Yeah.
I tried to do a little bit of research into the abuse that he claims from, torment that he claims from his peers, his brother, sister. I mean, from high school bullying, okay, sure. But from his parents, dad specifically, as he mentioned, and his sister, I actually couldn't find anything specifically that they did. So I don't know if it was just a time and a place of why he said trying to justify his actions. Personally, one thing is to rage kill someone, but sodomizing him, undressing him, a rock on his head, and strangling him seems a bit much for me.
It'd be one thing if he just rage killed him, but there was steps to it. So there's obviously more to this. Mm-hmm. And I think if this kid was allowed to stay out in public, this would not be the last one. This would have been the first step in a long line of murders, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to lure him. To be fair, it was secondary because it wasn't like he had tools ready that he was going to use.
Yeah.
Nothing like that, but you could bring him to the woods, you find a rock, you smash his head in, you strangle him, you undress him, and
I think I would have been fine with the secondary murder if it was just, I killed him. But because he undressed him, he did more to it. This wasn't just a quick little, I killed him and I left. This is like, I killed him, I did this, all these different steps. Like, this is a future serial killer if he wasn't put in jail for a long time. Yeah,
and Derrick at the time was only 4 years old. He was a young little kid. I'll have some pictures that I'll send over that we can update, but he was a cute little baby.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, so much life beyond this unfortunate incident with his asshole.
Yeah, it's completely insane.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of shitty people in this world, and he just happened to run into one of them.
Mm-hmm. And at least the justice system is doing right by Derrick by keeping this guy locked away.
Yeah, so far, at least.
Well, because he served the 9 years and then 2 life, so that's when he started doing the parole hearings. And of course, I feel like if they're rage and you can't explore it, what's to say if he did get out and just something else triggered him and he, did that again to, God forbid, another child, another adult, teen, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's always sad when adults get killed, but it seems to be worse when children are killed. I don't know what it is, but when I hear a kid is killed, I want to rage kill that other person. Whereas if an adult, it's just like, that sucks, put him in jail.
I don't know. I think it depends, like what leads you to get to that, especially, yes, a child's killed, but you're trying to look for justifying, right? Like, oh, this child was killed because so-and-so kidnapped you so that they can molest the child, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is no explanation. And another kid-on-kid crime, I mean, not to have any empathy towards Eric Smith, but he's 13 and he lost his entire life.
Yeah.
It's 2 kids that were lost in this and 2 families that were obviously just completely crushed. But good on Eric's family for also taking him in after he committed to it, because I'm sure some parents would be like, how can we spin this and make something out of it? They were honest and they just followed suit.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Brutal.
Yep. That's it.
For whom the bell tolls, when a child dies, we are all in pain. 2 children have been murdered and 2 more are the lead suspects. This is the story of Mary Bell. So the beer that I chose for this story is Bridge Brewing's Boys to the Yard. It's a chocolate coconut milkshake IPA. And Mike's going to tell you all about it.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a lot lighter than I expected.
Yes, same.
The website for Bridge Brewing doesn't have this beer yet, but I found something for it here. So it's a 6.5% alcohol flavored milkshake IPA. It's brewed with an addition of lactose. Boys to the Yard was conditioned on toasted coconut and cocoa nibs, yielding a true milkshake IPA.
It's much lighter than I expected.
It's kind of an orangey color. It's got some definite particulate in it, if you look at it. Kind of an off-white head.
Mm-hmm.
What's the particulate? Can you explain that?
I've never seen that before. It could be hop matter. It could be some of the coconut in there. Huh. It could be all kinds of stuff.
I've never seen that before.
Sometimes it's good to like roll bottles where it's a hazier beer to just get everything kind of mixed in. But I think it's just probably the coconut or something.
I think it's the coconut as well. Have you ever used canned coconut milk for cooking?
Yeah, all the cooking I do.
Well, the watery part of it, there's always still like milky.
Yeah, I've just never seen that with a beer before. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's got kind of a coconut aroma. The aroma's actually kind of subdued. I'm surprised.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of a floral hop note. There's some coconut, but there's not a lot to it, actually.
It has more flavor than the scent would lead you to believe.
Yeah, it definitely has like that coconut and chocolate in there. Some lactose, the sweetness, that's kind of like a milky sweetness. Mm-hmm. So that it kind of it leads to that milk chocolate note. Because the simple sugars would be just eaten up by the yeast. Mm-hmm. So you throw the lactose in there. It's got kind of a floral, herbal grassiness going on. Bitterness is really low. Mm-hmm. There's definitely like that herbal matter. Like it tastes like there's hops in there without having a big bitterness to it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I like.
It says, sorry.
No,
it's okay.
No.
What I don't like about the IPAs is the bitter IPAs.
Yeah.
So if it's hoppy without being bitter, I like that.
Yeah, it says on the bottle, the scale of hops is mild.
Makes sense to me, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like it still has a ton of hops in it, I'm sure. But they're late edition hops, like we talked in the last episode, probably.
Yeah, they're listed on the bottle, I think. Do you want me to read it to you?
Purple and black is a pain in the ass. So the hops are Eldorado hops, Sabro hops, but it's an interesting Boys of the Yard.
Not to be confused with Callister's smash hit in 2003 of My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard.
Yes.
That's the joke, though.
And they're not.
Yeah. It's the Boys of the Yard chocolate milk.
Wow.
I fucking love that song. You know, her husband got her face and body tattooed on him, and then they got divorced.
Oh, is that her?
No.
Khalees. Yeah. Nas got her freaking body. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice chocolate coconut milkshake IPA. It's definitely the first of this style that I've had. Mm-hmm. I like it though. I'd like a little more of the chocolate flavor.
Same.
But I think what I'm expecting is like a white stout, which is it has all the flavor of a stout, but it looks like this. Mm-hmm. And this it's not what they're going for. They're trying to go for a milkshake IPA, which is a sweet IPA with extra flavors. So I like it. I would think I'd prefer this to be a white chocolate milk stout.
If
just a little more chocolate
you
flavor.
offered me a chocolate coconut IPA like this one or a chocolate coconut stout, I'd take the stout in a second. Creamy, dark, chocolate coconut, amazing. So that would be great.
It's a neat. I do like the beer. It's a neat idea. I like what they've gone with, but I think it would have enjoyed it more if they'd just gone with a white stout.
Yes.
So, put some more roastiness in there, ramp up the chocolate, ramp up the lactose to give that sweetness, and then you can throw the coconut in there too.
Yeah.
And then just, bring down the bitterness a little bit so that it tastes the roastiness of a stout, but it looks like this. Mm-hmm. But either way, I do enjoy this beer. It's just not my favorite. It's a good beer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the story then.
Okay. Mary Flora Bell was born May 26th, 1957. She was raised in Scotswood, an inner-city suburb in the west end of Newcastle upon Tyne in England. In 1968, the area was a very poor area. Mary was 10, turning 11 that year. There was a lot of development as the government tore down the old slums to build new high-rises. The community kept an eye on everyone's children, but many of the local children were free to play unsupervised for hours. But that wasn't really uncommon then, and even up through the 80s, when I was a kid, we still played unsupervised.
Yeah,
it just wasn't a big deal then. It was different then. Mary's mother, Betty, was 17 when Mary was born. It is not known who her biological father was, but Mary believed it was Billy Bell. Billy had married Betty when Mary was just a baby. Betty was a prostitute that specialized in BDSM. Specifically, she dominated and whipped her clients. Billy was
interesting.
Right on.
You.
Yeah.
Take charge.
Billy was a habitual criminal, and Betty was the worst kind of mother. When she wasn't away working in Glasgow, she was working at home, even when Betty was there.
Mm-hmm.
Betty tried to give Mary away to a woman who had been denied an adoption. Betty's sister got Mary back and took her home to Betty.
I read I did a little bit of research on this one too, because I saw it on like a Killer Kids episode. Mm-hmm. And there were some points where when her mom was home, if the men wanted to have the child around too, that Mary Bell also helped perform.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have to wait.
Oh,
wait.
Just
Jeez,
joking.
Just reading the story. Jeez.
Numerous family members suggest that Betty made a few attempts on Mary's life before she had even turned 3. Mary accidentally fell out of a second-floor window and accidentally took sleeping pills twice. One of those times there was a witness who stated that Betty had given Mary the pills as sweets.
Jesus. Oh, wow.
So many speculated that Betty may have had Munchausen by proxy. So she she just wanted attention any way she could get it. She even told family members at one point that Mary was hit by a truck and had died. She wasn't hit by a truck and wasn't dead. She hadn't died. It was just something she said, and she told her family as much the next day. She just wanted the rush of attention. It didn't get any better for Mary from there. When she was 4 years old, Betty started forcing Mary to engage in sexual acts with her customers. She also witnessed her 5-year-old friend get hit and killed by a bus.
What the fuck? Parent of the year so far?
Mm-hmm. So the fall out of the second-story window, along with all this horrible emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, all contributed to the horrible events that escalated quickly at the beginning of May 1968. On May 12th, Mary was interviewed by police after the mothers of 3 local girls notified them that Mary had attacked and choked their 3 young daughters. She received a lecture, but no formal charges were laid. She was only 10, so they likely just assumed that she didn't know any better, that she didn't understand what she was doing. On May 25th, the day before Mary's 11th birthday, Mary was out playing by herself. She came across Martin Brown, a local 4-year-old boy. She took him to an abandoned house so they could play a game. She told him that he had a sore throat, that she was a doctor, so she was going to help him. She massaged his throat to ease his pain, slowly strangling him to death.
Oh, fuck.
She left him there alone and went back to play. He was later found by 2 boys who were out playing. They called out 2 construction workers that were working nearby to help revive Martin. It was too late, though. He was already dead. Mary was bringing her friend, 13-year-old Norma Joyce Bell, no relation, in spite of the same last name, to see Martin. They arrived shortly after the construction workers, and when the police arrived, Norma and Mary didn't leave until they were ordered to do so. Martin had blood and saliva trickling down his cheek. A bottle of pills was found nearby. There was no obvious signs of violence, so his death was ruled accidental overdose.
Crazy. Of course, yeah.
How would a child that age even get their hands on that many pills?
Well, there was a bottle of pills found nearby, and it was just like an abandoned house. Like, it was all boarded up, and they just kind of assumed.
2 and 2 together, yeah.
Yeah. But, like, if they weren't in his stomach, why would they think that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they check? You know what I mean? Anyway. The next day was Mary's birthday, and she was caught trying to throttle Norma's little sister. Norma's father had to push Mary's hands away from the other girl. Mary didn't stop there, though. The following day, the day after her birthday, Mary and Norma broke into a nursery. They vandalized it and left some very strange notes. Mostly, it was a lot of misspelled curse words, but Alarmingly, the notes included one that said, quote, "We did murder Martin Brown." The police knew it was children that had left the notes and dismissed them as a horrible prank. Mary later admitted that they had written them for fun. They thought it would just be a good laugh.
Oh, of course, yeah. Ha, ha, ha.
Mm-hmm. You can see pictures of that specific note on the website if you want to have a look. Only 2 months passed after the first murder until Mary felt the need to kill again. This time Norma was with her. On July 31st, 1968, they lured 3-year-old Brian Howe out to an empty yard that had become a local dumping ground and playground. Because...
why not, right?
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Kids don't care about safety.
They don't.
Mm-hmm. No. And really, 1980s and before, parents weren't that concerned either.
No, they weren't, yeah.
They played the same game with him as Mary had played with Martin. This time, though, Mary used a pair of old scissors to cut off some of Brian's hair, scratch his legs, and mutilate his penis.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
A few days later, investigators noticed a lightly cut M on his stomach.
Wasn't me.
Yeah.
Or was it?
In 1968.
I've never been to England.
And you're not from 1968.
Yeah.
Or are you?
I'm going to start with that, though. Mm-hmm. Even if I time travel, I've never been there, so whatever.
So if I time travel, I'm going to fucking 1968.
Yeah, you never know.
It was clear to the investigators that the crimes were escalating. As both areas were frequented by the local children, the police decided to start questioning them. They questioned hundreds of children, but 2 of them really stuck out. Norma Bell, who was 13 at the time, was downright giddy about being questioned. All smiles as if this was a big entertaining joke for her. Mary Bell, on the other hand, was very evasive. She told the police that she had seen a specific 8-year-old boy with Brian. Furthermore, she had seen this boy hit Brian, and later he was playing with a pair of scissors. This was very interesting, police, but not for the reason that Mary had hoped. The police knew that the particular boy was at the airport at the time of the murder, so he couldn't possibly have been in the yard at the same time that Brian was. And the interesting part was actually the scissors, because that piece of information had been withheld. Only the murderer or someone who had at least been there at the time would have known about their involvement in the crime. They knew she was involved, but they needed more evidence. This meant keeping an eye on this very strange duo.
And I feel like, too, like, for the person, the other girl, just more like joking about it because she doesn't take it serious, but Mary Bell had a whole alternative story. Like, she thought about what to say to distract from her. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So they soon found out that Mary hadn't been quite so evasive when she was around other children. She had been seen and heard pointing at the house where Brian was found and shouting, quote, "I am a murderer. That's where I killed." As Mary was known to tell lies to get attention, the children didn't put much stock in her claims. According to Martin Brown's mother, June, Mary paid her a visit only 4 days after her son died. Mary asked to see Martin. When June reminded her that Martin had passed away, Mary replied, quote, "I know. I just want to see the coffin."
She's fucked.
Wow.
Yeah.
June slammed the door in her face and collapsed in agony. Norma and Mary had also visited Martin's aunt. This is a quote from her. Quote, "They kept asking me, 'Do you miss Martin? Do you cry for him? Does June miss him?' And they were always smiling when they asked."
Wow, that's crazy.
She said, "I could stand it no more, and I told them to get out and not to come back." What the fuck?
But also as a child, too, like, how do you understand the process of, like, yeah, no, I know he's dead. I want to see the coffin. Like, excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
I think as a kid, I'd be so struck in with, like, well, what do you mean he's dead?
Mm-hmm.
Where
like, not
where
understanding.
Where did he go?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not like, no,
yeah,
I
well,
get it.
And they were 11 and 13. Still so young, you know? A detective stationed outside of Brian Howe's house on the day of the burial was disgusted to see Mary gleefully laughing and rubbing her hands together as the coffin was brought outside. He decided to question Norma again right away. What Norma had to say this time shocked them all. Apparently, Mary had taken Norma to see the body and told her that she killed Brian by squeezing his neck until he stopped breathing. Norma told police, quote, "His lips were purple. Mary ran her fingers along his lips. She said she had enjoyed it."
Wow. Nope.
Crazy.
Nope.
Nope.
The girls were arrested August 5th, 1968. According to Mary, Norma was lying. She had nothing to do with it and refused to make a statement. The police had to let her go.
Of course.
Once they got more information from Norma, they decided to charge both girls with 2 counts of manslaughter. During her pretrial incarceration, Mary was observed to be intelligent but very manipulative and even violent. She made some strange comments to her guards, things like, quote, "I like hurting little things that can't fight back." And, "Murder isn't that bad. We all die sometime anyway."
Not by being murdered, though, you psycho.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a true statement, but no.
Technically, you're right, but you're wrong.
Yeah, technically you're right, but don't say that out loud. Her lack of emotions led to a psychiatric assessment. She was soon diagnosed as a psychopathic.
No way.
Yeah, and deemed to be not fully responsible for the crimes that she was accused of committing.
That part's bullshit. I'm sorry.
She's 11.
She's 11. Yeah.
I don't know. Still.
And with the upbringing she had, she doesn't understand what's going on. Okay, the trial began December 5th, 1968. During the trial, Norma and Mary testified against each other, but it was clear that they still had some sort of strange bond. When not in court for their trial, the girls still chatted with each other, even though they were not in the same cell.
What are they, passing notes? I guess they are that young, but that's all they could do.
Well, it's a really small jail,
right.
And so they're still, like, chatting to each other, even though they're not, like, through the bars, you know?
They're just yelling from a distance?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
Mm-hmm.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but is it really that weird?
No.
It's not like there's anyone else around for them to talk to. They're the only kids.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Maybe they found some paper to throw paper airplane notes.
Yeah.
Whoosh.
Ah!
Right in the eye.
On December 17th, 1968, Norma was acquitted of all charges. It's likely that Norma was acquitted because she seemed more childlike at trial, and she had her family there supporting her. Norma seemed shocked and cried when details were read in court, whereas Mary was very serious, intelligent, and felt that crying was an unacceptable sign of weakness.
I think you're a child. There should be some weakness there.
Yeah. She doesn't know anything about being a child, though, right?
True, yeah, true.
But I think we're also saying that she's a child because she's 11, but what she's experienced is probably what more than most adults,
exactly,
trauma-wise, may have experienced.
Exactly. The only thing that Norma actually was acquitted of was when they vandalized that nursery.
Yeah.
So she got like 3 months probation and had to see a psychiatrist for that. But Mary was convicted, but under diminished responsibility, so she was sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. So this means that she is detained with no definite date of release and no definite date of parole. So when Mary heard her sentence in court, she cried. It was the first time she showed any sort of emotion. And her family did nothing to comfort her in any way.
Good family.
Just let her cry.
What family?
So the problem is, where the hell do you put an 11-year-old girl who's been convicted of double murder? She's too young for the women's prison and too dangerous for a mental institution. So in the end, it was decided to send her to the Red Bank Special Unit. It was an all-boys reform school with sections that had high security. Seems like an odd choice for someone who had already killed 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
But
these boys might be a bit older than her too, though.
Yes.
Not as young of victims as she chose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're talking about some real shithead boys here, not just some poor
Because Juvenile
little...
would be 18 and under, correct?
Usually, yeah. And usually, you know, if you're going to Juvenile, you're not just some little punk. You've usually got some decent crimes behind you, so you're not just some little poor boy that's being
Yeah.
defiled.
And she rightfully deserved her place.
Yeah.
Yep.
She earned it.
So she was the only girl there. So Red Bank was led by James Dixon, and he had previously served in the Navy and brought this structure and discipline to the school. This was just what Mary needed. She actually grew to respect and even love Mr. Dixon. Surprisingly, or at least I was surprised, Betty frequently visited Mary at Red Bank. While Mary was excited on the mornings of the visits, she often acted out aggressively afterwards. Betty was manipulative and excessively dramatic. One Red Bank doctor even wanted the visits to stop, but in the 60s and 70s even suggesting that a mother shouldn't have contact with her child was completely out of the question. Yeah, it just wasn't going to happen, right? As I read on in my research, I found out the real reason why Betty was visiting Mary. She was gathering information to sell to the tabloids. And
that is so fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Are you surprised, though?
No, not really, but still, that's
She
so
didn't want
wrong.
this child, and now she at least has a money bank.
Yeah. It's still so fucking horrible, though, you know what I mean? So she was gathering information, and she would sell it to the tabloids, but on top of that, she encouraged Mary to write poems and letters, and draw pictures and whatever, and she would sell all of those to the tabloids as well.
Call back to the last episode. Kids write poems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently kids that kill write poems.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe.
Betty even complained to Mary and anyone else that would listen about how hard it was to be the mother of a murderer.
Imagine being the mother of a kid who got murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. This is a quote from Betty. Jesus was only nailed to the cross. I'm being hammered.
Muffin.
Holy.
What?
Yeah, what a fucking drama queen. She just implied that she was worse off than Jesus being crucified.
The fairy tale creature.
Okay.
Anyways.
So Mary saw a lot of different counselors while she was at Red Bank. The philosophy there was to focus on the present, so none of the counselors actually found out why she had killed those boys.
What?
Does it matter at that point, though?
I mean,
think you should know what the crime is.
No, they knew what the crime was, but not why.
Mm-hmm.
Still.
They knew what she did, but not why she did it.
Mm-hmm. So their philosophy was, like, moving forward from now. This is what needs to happen. So while she was there, she would tell people that she had a twin sister named Paula, which never existed, but she later explained that she did this to have someone to blame her violent actions on. I mean, I have a twin. I blame everything on her, so it's pretty handy.
I believe it, yeah.
Yeah. In 1973, against Mr. Dixon's advice, Mary was transferred to Style, which was a women's-only facility, and this did not go well. Mary went from being around almost only boys in a school-like setting to only women in a prison setting.
Yeah, it gotta be a little rough there, yeah.
Yeah. So she rebelled and was frequently punished. She decided to, quote, go butch. Those are her words.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I don't use these words. Okay. So she strutted, used makeup to create stubble on her face, and wore a rolled-up sock down the front of her pants.
What?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
Her mother was...
That's not going butch. That's trying to go man.
Yeah. Her mother was not impressed. Quote, Jesus Christ, what's next? You're a murderer and now you're a lesbian?
What?
The horror! Oh my god. What a piece of shit.
Mary explained that she was just trying to be anyone except for herself. She hated herself so much. She just wanted to be anybody else. In 1977, when Mary was 20, she was transferred again from Steyl to a lower security prison called Moore Court. Shortly after arriving, she escaped with another inmate. The first night out, they were picked up by two men while they were hitchhiking. Mary lost her virginity, and the douchebag sold the story to the tabloids, claiming that Mary had escaped in an effort to get pregnant. As if she didn't hate the media enough already, right? Yeah. They were caught 2 or 3 days after escaping. So, in spite of this escape, she was moved to a hostel shortly before being released only 3 years later.
What?
So she's been punished so many times for rebelling against the system, and she tried to escape, and they still let her out.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
So this was in 1980. So while she was there in this hostel, she met a married man who, in Mary's words, quote, wanted to prove to me that I wasn't a lesbian.
How old did you say she was?
20.
Okay, that's not as bad then.
But some guys really think like that.
Yes, they do.
The
but
issue here
I
is
was
an
just
age.
worried that she might still be a minor.
I see.
Oh no,
I get that, but the mentality that he has is still...
I'll just beat it out of you with my dick. It's fine. Sorry. He didn't use those words, but that was his goal.
So shortly after this, Mary realized that she was pregnant, and she had to make the horrible decision to have an abortion. She said, quote, almost the first thing I did after 12 years in prison for killing 2 babies was to kill the baby inside of me. But she didn't feel like she had a choice.
That is a little rough, yeah, because it's not like she chose to get pregnant.
No.
Was she assaulted?
She wasn't assaulted, but through like what I was reading, she didn't really know that she could say no. Mm. She didn't understand.
Taken advantage of? Okay.
Yeah, she didn't really understand that she could just say no. I don't want to do this.
Yes.
Which, who knows if she said no would have helped in that particular situation either.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly it. And I mean, it is different than actively murdering a child than to have an abortion. It's
I mean, that's why I wanted to...
I'm sorry, but a young woman who's had this kind of upbringing and this kind of issues in her life, mm-hmm. she's probably not going to see the difference.
I don't know what you mean.
She's got no life experience. Like, she thinks she's already killed 2 kids and now she felt like she was murdering another kid, right?
Yeah.
She just doesn't understand the difference.
Yeah. And even in that time, it was different because it was still like, once you're pregnant, it's a baby. And I'm like, well, it's not.
It's not a baby till it's fucking born.
No comment.
Leslie, that's a long conversation.
It is. Yes,
on our next episode.
Yeah. Anyway, moving forward. So Mary's full release came May 14th, 1980. She had killed 2 children, served 12 years, and at 23 she was free to start a new life with full anonymity as if nothing had happened because she was granted a new name and everything.
And all that stuff.
Yeah. So, want to guess what her first job was when she got it out?
Prostitute.
Childcare.
Shut the front door.
Her first job out was at a local children's nursery. Her probation officer didn't feel like this was appropriate. So
I wonder why.
So she had to quit and she took on waitressing jobs instead. She also had to move back in with her mother. And I'm like, there's no fucking way that was good for her.
No.
You'll appreciate this comparison, Nina. Her mother's like a dementor. Just like floating through life, sucking all the hope and happiness out of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like what her life consists of. That's what she feeds on.
She'd be better off going to any kind of like halfway house for young offenders than to go home to
anywhere else. So shortly after moving back in with her mother, she met a man and got pregnant again. This was years after she was pregnant the last time. Just so we're clear. Okay. So the relationship didn't last, but this time Mary had decided that she was keeping the baby. The state was concerned about the idea of a child killer having a child of her own.
Sorry, just that statement made me think of Carla Homolka. She has 2 kids of her own now, and she killed her own sister and all. And well,
not just killed her sister, yeah.
Oh
yeah,
God.
Sorry, but
all
even
kinds of sexual abuse and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Horrendous human.
Yeah, so her daughter was born May 25th, 1984. That's exactly 16 years to the day after Mary had committed her first murder. Was that fucking nuts?
Only a little younger than me.
But still, like, that the baby was born 16 years to the day.
Yeah.
That is fucking
obviously
creepy.
That wasn't planned. That's just...
Oh, yeah.
Happy coincidence.
Coincidence.
Let's just
not
say,
happy.
Yeah. Anyway, the baby was officially a ward of the court until 1992, but was raised by Mary. Mary was sure that she was a totally different person from that violent little girl. She commented that whatever it was that was broken inside of her had been completely fixed. She eventually met a man, they fell in love, and the 3 of them moved into a small town. The villagers were notified by Mary's probation officer about who she was. I didn't really understand that, though, because it's like if she was granted anonymity and her name was changed and everything, I don't understand why it was the probationary.
But I don't think that they would go be like, she was Mary Bell, da-da-da-da-da. I think it's just, she's a convicted of this. They don't have to give a name. I think it's more just like maybe that public knowledge.
Maybe, yeah.
Like she was convicted of murder, but they didn't say, like, Mary
she
Bell.
did this. Exactly, right? Where the Sex Offenders Act, when it went into action, now gives you the date, or sorry, it gives you the date of the release, the name, not necessarily the offenses, but I mean, a light Google search won't hurt.
It's true.
Okay, that makes sense. So no surprise, the villagers were not psyched and marched through the streets carrying signs that read, "Murderer out," and marched towards her and her family's house. So they were forced to move again and led a quiet life for years until Mary co-wrote a book about her life, and it was published in 1998.
What?
Yep. So if she hates the media so much, why the hell would she do that?
To try to clear her name, because from what you said too, like if we believe in our justice system and we believe in the rehabilitation of certain criminals and that when she was released that she was cleared and safe to go back to community, I mean, up until this point, she has not reoffended.
Right.
She hasn't done anything. So I don't know if this is the last cry of just let me get my word out so you understand some of her psyche.
Or it's money, money, money.
Well, that's the thing. At this point, this was in 1998. So at this point, it had been
20 years?
Like 12 years of quiet.
I forgot to carry the zero.
No. Like it had. Because her daughter was born in 84, so they hadn't been bothered since 86.
Yeah.
So 12 years of quiet, which is what she says she wanted.
Right.
And then she decides to co-author this book in 1998. So there was obviously a massive amount of attention when this happened, and they were forced to leave their home again.
And when she did that book, she went with her real name?
I would assume so.
The book was actually authored by someone else with, like,
her insight.
She wasn't like a co-author, I suppose, technically, but it was still, it had all her information, and really is, how hard is it to track back? But supposedly this is actually how Mary's daughter, who was a teenager now, found out who her mother really was.
Oh, wow.
Prior to this.
Mind fuck.
Yeah, prior to that,
so
she had no idea.
Birds and the beads talk, and then plus I killed 2 boys, and don't eat dirt or poo or yellow sand, or yellow snow.
Or yellow sand.
But why would she not tell her daughter before publishing the book? It's not like she didn't know the book was going to be published.
Oh, I murdered 2 kids.
Like, fucking heads up. Give her a heads up.
How old was your daughter at the time?
Teenager.
She would have been a teenager. In 98, she would have been 14.
I'm just thinking how you like casually like over like Sunday brunch. By the way, I brought the boys to the yard and I killed them.
But did she really think it was going to remain private though once the book was published?
I think a lot of these killers do.
But I mean, like, are we going to do our sane thoughts on someone who was insane? I don't know.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
No. And the husband, I would assume, knew.
Knew who she really was?
Probably not until the book was released.
No, he did know.
The chasing out of the murderer and da-da-da-da.
Okay,
yeah. Most likely he had a pretty good understanding.
I wouldn't have that understanding, I don't think.
Well, when he met her, she was living at her mother's house, and everyone knew who her mother was.
Okay, I wouldn't have that understanding. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't even want to put myself in those shoes because I can't imagine, so I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, so they had to move again, and they went back to court, and in 2003, Mary and her daughter were both granted lifelong anonymity. But I think that's bullshit. Because she chose to have that book published.
Yeah.
That was her decision. And when she accepted the reported £50,000, which is $137,500 Canadian, she gave up that right. She gave up the right of anonymity. That was her decision.
But I'm curious too, if like, you know, we talk about the money. Could she be employed? What did she have her I'm not sure if it's called a GED at the time. Mm-hmm. What kind of life skills did she have in a penitentiary? I mean, at that point,
did she have high school equivalency? Yeah.
She did. It was a reform school.
Yeah, there you go.
But so I think like when you're hiring too, like you would still declare like, yes, I was in jail. If they do a criminal, I'm not sure if they do a criminal check.
Usually when you get a job, do you have a criminal record? Yes or no? Do you have this? Yes or no? Blah, blah, blah. So
I would think that part of yes. But I would think that part of the anonymity is that she wouldn't have to include that.
I don't think so.
Legally, I think when they ask you if you have a criminal record, no matter what, you have to say yes or no.
I mean, maybe it depends on what it is, but I think...
Even if that's the case, I still think that if she's selling her story for $137,000, you're giving up that right.
I agree, totally. And I'll take that $137,000 myself right now.
But I think, like, if she had no skills to get an actual job, maybe she was left without a choice but to publish a book on her story to get money. And then, yes, you lose your anonymity. But also, at the like, what good is that doing her? Because here we are sitting talking about it.
Yeah.
Making sure that she doesn't have her anonymity.
Anonymity.
I can't say it either anymore. Shit.
Anonymity.
Beck, why don't you say it?
Anonymity.
Thank you.
Sure.
So there was such an uproar about Mary being able to make money off her crimes that shortly after this happened, the laws were changed. Similar to what we have here, right?
Yeah.
You can't, if you commit a crime, you can't publish books about it, whatever. You know how it is.
Did she also...
Because of Picton?
Well, did she also talk about her upbringing as well? Because technically it's only what would be in court. So even just talking about the trauma she experienced as a child could captivate some readers to want to understand that psyche more.
The book does include her childhood.
Her mother and
that piece of that's shit, where most of the information about her childhood came from. But also it's corroborated by family members. So anything that was stated in the book that wasn't corroborated elsewhere, I just didn't include it.
Fair enough.
Makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. In 2008, Mary Bell became a grandmother. I'm going to close with what Martin's mother, June, had to say about that. Quote, "A child is a blessing. She took my blessing and left me with the grief for the rest of my life. I hope when she looks at this child, she remembers the two that she murdered. I will never see a grandchild from my son. I hope every time she looks at this baby, she realizes what my family are missing out on because of what she did."
So true.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have trouble with this story because we always do like, well, what, like with Eric Smith, what when he's released? What if he is released? Mm-hmm. But with her, she was released. She's never reoffended. So was...
Or has she?
Well, no. But you were saying like at the prison that she was where and I can't remember his name, but he had a strict military structure.
Yeah,
she
Mr.
needed
Dixon.
structure. She needed that kind of
That's what kids
guidance
need.
or whatever, right? So it's like, I'm curious of, isn't the whole point of our justice system to help reform these people and introduce them back into society? So now here's someone who that apparently worked for because she hasn't reoffended, and yet you're still like castrating them. Okay, I know she doesn't have a ween, but like, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Like, so what do you want your justice system to be, right? Like, do
No,
you
I
want
know
it
what you're
to
saying. I'm
rehabilitate?
definitely torn on this case, which is probably why I'm so interested in it.
Yep.
Is that she went through the justice system and came out reformed. She hasn't reoffended.
Yep.
Isn't that what you want?
Right. So it's like,
But that doesn't make me less sad for those kids.
no, but I mean,
And
like,
I
then,
completely understand June's
absolutely.
sentiment.
Yep.
Why should Mary get a new life when June and her family still feel every ounce of pain that they felt?
Yeah, it's hard.
But then what do you expect from your justice system? Like, what do you want then? Right? Like,
Oh, there is no win. There's
No,
no
there
win
isn't.
here.
right? But I think there has to be some, I don't want to say acceptance, but like there has to just be some breathing room for that, because, well, what the fuck do you want then, right? Like,
I think from some people there would be. There are people who can forgive.
yeah.
That there are some people in June's position who could be happy that for how Mary is now. I know I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
I know I would still be as angry as June was.
But I think that's when you talk about, like, can you forgive? Yes, but don't forget,
You know, for sure.
right? So it's just like, I don't want to be an advocate for her by any means, because what she did was awful, but come on, what chance did she have as a child?
Oh no, totally, I agree.
So I don't know. I'm
I think in
lopsided on
this
this
story,
one.
the only person more horrible than Mary is her piece of shit mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's when we talked about the death penalty too. Like, I'm super for the death penalty in the right cases, but I can see how, looking at it, this would have seemed like a right case, potentially.
No,
But
for a child.
if you look at the states and how they may have justified this and I keep saying castrated, and spayed her. I don't know. But like,
well, they kind of tried to, though, right? Once she got pregnant and they wanted to take her baby.
yeah, I guess, I don't know. I just struggle with it, because it's like, okay, well, what more do you want from her, right? She accepted her guilt. She did her time. The fact that she escaped and didn't get more time for that, to me, is beyond me. But that's
Yeah,
the
I
system.
don't understand that.
But that's the system failing her, not her. She went to jail and she finished what was supposed to. So I don't know.
it's complicated.
what do you think, Mike?
It's definitely complicated. Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, that's Mary Bell. It's very interesting.
In a
It is,
nutshell.
yeah. For my story, we're going to do the Warwick Slasher. So today's walk down Despicable Lane brings me to the kid named Craig Chandler Price. Well, he was a kid at the time of the crimes, but he's been rotting in jail for much of his life. All right, so we've got the House on Brewing Wee Beastie Scotch Jail. I thought it was kind of fitting. Mm-hmm. So it's 6.5% alcohol, 18 IBUs, so it's low bitterness.
It's a huge bottle.
It's a 1 liter bottle. It has a pot stopper too, so you can actually recap it.
I don't think we're worried.
I don't think we are too, but
Wow, that's really dark.
this is a deep, like chestnut brown. You can only see through it when you hold it up to a light.
Yeah.
It's got kind of a light brown head. Kind of a interesting, like roasty nose.
It's very roasty.
It doesn't
Well, I
taste
mean,
as
I
dark as
tasted
it
it,
is.
so-
Just sort
Bit
of
of a
a
cheat.
I don't know what the nose is.
It's a part of the
Dark
human
fruity,
body.
like dark fruity, like pruny nose.
It doesn't taste as dark as it should be.
Not there yet, even. Definitely some like roast and chocolate and toffee, a little bit of caramel. Not a lot of fruit to the flavor. Low bitterness, very low bitterness. It's a very rounded flavor, though. There's lots to it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's a super challenging flavor, though.
What do you mean by that?
It's not gonna like scare people away, I don't think. It's not really bitter. It's not really roasty. You know, it's a little bit sweet. What do you think, Nina?
As far as like the darker beers go, this is actually my favorite one.
There you go. See? Doesn't scare people away.
Yeah, I'm still I'm a wee bit tempted. Yeah, I don't actually might actually have a little bit more of this one. It's okay.
Craig Chandler Price was born on October 11th, 1973 in Warwick, Rhode Island. He would grow up, quote unquote, I say loosely, in the Buttonwoods neighborhood of Warwick. He lived with his parents in a small rancher-style home. He was not a little angel, as he would suspect, with us covering him, but it's hard to believe his actual record. As a juvenile, he racked up a record of breaking and entering, robbery, drug use, stalking, and even assault. One of the assaults was even on one of his own family members. Talk about a piece of garbage human. At some time in his younger years, he joined a gang of other delinquent little shits. It's the only way to say it, really.
Where was this? I'm sorry.
Rhode Island, United States.
I feel like this, like,
yeah, really.
Gang. I mean, I'm going to sound like such a country person, but it feels so unrealistic for a child to be able to just join a gang like what you're talking about. You know what I mean? It sounds so adult.
Yeah.
Or at least teenage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But, I mean, that's just my naivety.
No, for sure. So they would work together to break into houses and steal belongings. Little shits, right? Weirdly, with all of the illegal stuff that Craig was pulling off, he was still known as a good-humored, spirited kid.
I've been described like that. Good-humored and spirited.
He was known as Iron Man on his football team. He was a large, imposing player with a baby face.
At what age?
Like really early teens.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So things turned away from more petty crimes and assault when he was 13. On July 27th, 1987, he became a murderer for the first time. Late that evening, he would break into a neighbor's house. His neighbor was a 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer, and she just happened to be home for the evening. He took a packing knife that he found in her kitchen, and in a very violent fashion stabbed her 58 times.
Jeez. You hear about things like that, right? Where someone has been stabbed that many times, and it's like, think about that. Even just do that action 10 times.
Yeah.
How tired is your arm?
But
you know what I'm saying?
You're forgetting the adrenaline of it, right? Too, right? Like,
yeah.
That to him could have been 10 seconds of just like fucking going.
And he's a football player.
58 so though.
Even as a kid, if you're a football player, you're probably pumping iron a little bit, but still, yeah, crazy.
But the adrenaline, just like the mindfuck you're going through, it's happening.
Yeah.
But it was unexpected, I'm assuming.
Well, you don't expect to get stabbed 58 times, so yes.
Well, I don't mean on her part. But I mean, when you hear about someone being stabbed that many times in, like, the heat of passion, there's hate and adrenaline behind that. But for it to be unexpected and still be that many times, I feel like it's even more shocking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it
could be the rage, too, instead of passion, right? Like, with Eric Smith, like, everything he did was just fucking rage. So maybe this is
a little bit, yeah.
Okay,
let's let Mike. Yeah, we're jumping the gun back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you do, right? After working an overnight shift as a security guard, her brother, who lived with her, came home to find her brutally stabbed and in a pool of her own blood in the living room. He does not remember exactly what happened after, but he does remember calling 911 and trying to revive her. Good for him, right? It was very lucky for everyone involved that Rebecca's two young children, were staying the night at their father's house, or they could have likely ended up as victims that night.
I thought you were going to say they were there or something horrible. Oh my God.
Unfortunately, it turns out that Craig had been peeping on Rebecca for an extended time and possibly on dozens of occasions. He was even reported more than once to police as a black man hiding in the bushes watching her in her home.
Jesus.
This was a terribly brutal murder that would shock any city or neighborhood, but regardless of how much work was put in, the local police could not figure it out and the case went cold. He reverted back to just petty crime for what I can gather for the next 2 years. But on September 1st, 1989, things would change for the worse again. After taking acid and smoking weed, he broke into the house of a neighbor once again. This was the house of the Heaton family. This time, he had intentions of only robbing the house, but I guess he did not case the house out well enough, as the house was not empty that night. Joan Heaton, the mother, was home with her 2 children, Jennifer and Melissa. In an act of panic, Craig would first beat and strangle Joan and stab her 57 times. Yeah, he's a scary, scary human.
He's going in for the kill.
A young teen, but very scary human. Her children will wake up to her screams and would come to find out what was happening. He then moved over to the 10-year-old daughter, Jennifer, and he stabbed her 62 times.
Oh, my God.
He finished with the 8-year-old daughter, Melissa, where he stabbed her 30 times, but horribly did not stop here as he crushed her skull with a kitchen stool.
That's disgusting.
Oh, my God.
One thing that I read was super disgusting is that he stabbed the woman and her daughters so hard that he broke the handles of the knives off that he used. Yes, not a knife, but knives. He would go back to get more, and the knife blades were found in their lifeless bodies. In the act of these murders, he did manage to cut his own hand, though. The slashing and stabbing murders were so similar to the case 2 years ago that the local police brought in the FBI to help with the investigation. The FBI were basically brought in to profile a serial killer that the town was sure that they were dealing with. Now, the FBI did not profile a 15-year-old black male as a suspect, though, and this would have stayed as a cold case if the local detective did not notice a large cut on Craig's hand. Before the revelation of the killer, the Buttonwoods neighborhood was paralyzed in fear. The police would comb the streets daily as they had deduced that the killer was likely a local person. Families in the area would padlock their doors while they wondered what kind of monster they were living with. So that takes extra level of fear to padlock your doors. Because you can't just padlock a normal door.
No.
You can't?
Well, how do you padlock a normal door, right?
You put a padlock on it.
Yeah, exactly. It takes the next step.
But you have to go buy that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was like,
it's not like you can just padlock a normal door, right? You have to buy an apparatus to actually padlock the door.
Yes, fact.
To Craig Price would not seem like a suspect, as while he was always getting into trouble, it was petty crime that he was known for, and he was known to be a friendly neighbor and always around friends at the time. On September 5th, 1989, only 4 days after the 3 were murdered, Craig was brought in for an interrogation with the local police. While being interrogated, the police noticed a large cut on his hand and inquired about it. He tried to blame it on a drunken injury that he suffered recently. Seeing as they did not believe his story, they began to suspect something might be up with Craig, though. They knew that the killer had cut himself at the house, and they had found a bloody sock print on the floor at the house. The sock print just happened to match his size 13 feet. With this, they got him to do a lie detector test, one that he would fail miserably to boot. From this, they would gain a search warrant for his family house. When they entered his home, they would find his bloody clothing, and in the shed, in the backyard, they would find knives from the attack. With his mother crying beside Craig at the police station, Craig Price would confess to the murders. But he would show no remorse for his brutal murder of the 4 female victims. He is such a despicable human that not only would he confess, but he would mimic the dying sounds that the girls made as he killed them.
His poor mother, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then things just got hectic after that. What did she say to you when she saw you, Craig? She didn't say anything. She was just trying to, as soon as she seen me, run the other way, break the other way. Okay. And I grabbed her.
What happened then?
So I was just, trying to kill her.
Do you remember one of the girls trying to get to the phone?
I don't know, she said, get to the phone, get to the phone. She was just saying that, get to the phone. She didn't say the name, but she said...
Did you remember one of the girls trying to get to the phone?
Nah, she was just standing at the side of the wall. And I was running back to the window, back and forth to see if the police were coming or something like that.
If you can remember, how many knives did you use?
I don't know, a lot. About 6, I think, maybe.
Jesus.
Okay. Okay, you covered the mother. Do you remember what you covered the other children with?
The rug.
Okay. All right.
Why did you cover him?
Because I didn't want to look at that.
What did she say to you when she saw you cry?
She didn't say anything. She was just like trying to, like, as soon as she seen me, like run the other way, break the other way. So then I was like, oh, what the hell? I ran into like the kitchen. On top of the refrigerator was a knife. And I just killed them. Grabbed all the knives and anything that I could see, and then put them in a towel, then in the bag.
Did you get the towel in the bag from inside the house?
Yeah, in the bathroom.
Okay.
And then I just put everything in a bag. I even got the garbage bag out of the bathroom. When you found that bag, did you find all Dixie cups and everything in it?
I think they did.
Yeah, that was from their house.
How did you hurt your hand?
When I was stabbing, I guess I got careless or something. Like, and I stabbed my own finger.
Okay.
Glad I got caught for it.
Are you? If you hurt Becky Spencer, would you want to be caught for that?
Yeah, if I did, but I didn't. You'll see when you hear reports back.
The last little bit there was he was totally admitting to the fact that he had murdered the family, but he was trying to claim he didn't kill the first woman. It was just so hard to believe. But just so nonchalant about everything, right? Yeah, I did this, and I did this, and covered her. So he doesn't even give a shit. Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe.
And that he was just like, I didn't want to look at that. And that's why he covered them up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's why murderers do cover their victims, because they don't want to see what they did, but for him to just be like, I didn't want to look at that.
Well, actually, most murderers usually cover up their bodies of victims if they know them, because they don't want to see someone they know. But he just didn't want to see the victims in general. But he was just a friggin' kid. It's so hard to believe. 15 years old. Like, how fucked up. I definitely was not thinking about murder at my 15-year-old or 16-year-old or whatever birthday.
I think I was drunk on my 60th birthday.
Oh, I definitely wasn't.
I definitely wasn't.
No.
Neither was I if my mom's listening.
So his arrest was only 1 month before his 16th birthday.
Wow.
So Tim Colgan, the detective that would take Craig's confession, went home the night of the confession and was reduced to tears. Colgan was the first officer on the scene of the murder and had never witnessed such a brutality or savagery, as well as a lack of remorse that he showed. Which is understandable. I mean, that's pretty fucked up. The other detective, Kevin Collins, who took Craig's confession, stated that he had never felt as much rage as he did after the set of murders. He vowed that day that he would do everything in his power to ensure that Craig Price would never walk free again. The FBI would later comment that Craig Price would go down in the history books as the youngest serial killer in the United States history. Just a reminder that mass shootings are spree killings.
Yep.
So it's probably been younger mass shooters, but he is the youngest serial killer in the United States history. Now, of course, the police and prosecutors were happy that they had captured this young monster due to the fact that he was Rhode Island's most notorious serial killer to date. There was a slight wrinkle in the case, though, that is more than a little frustrating. Because Craig was a minor, he could only be tried as a juvenile at the time, and there was no laws allowing for young people to be tried as adults. This meant that he would have to be sent to a juvenile correctional facility called the Rhode Island Training School. The maximum prison sentence for a child at this time in Rhode Island was disgustingly short, 5 years.
Regardless, like 5 years per person or 5 years?
5 years.
Flat out.
5 years.
But I mean, maybe in sentences they can do served consecutively. Or...
No, 5 years.
But
That's
if it's
it.
multiple people?
Nope. That's the fucked up part about this. But don't worry.
Oh.
There was a quote that I cannot find credit for that said, "Craig Price is a serial killer. Stopped temporarily at 4 killings," he said. "He should be locked up for life." Of course, due to Craig's age, his records were sealed at the time, and this kept the brutality of his murders from the public. At the training school, he would be remanded to the school's maximum security wing. He was to stay here until his 21st birthday. This would have meant that the 5'10", 240-pound football player and murderer will be free to resume his life with absolutely no record to haunt him.
That's terrifying.
Yes. The Assistant Attorney General, Jeffrey Pine, would go on to say that he had never felt such frustration or disgust within the system. There was something fundamentally wrong with the system that allowed someone who killed 4 people to simply go free at 21. This propelled Pine on a mission to change the system so that future young monsters would be locked up for life and get rid of the loophole that would currently allow them to get out so young. The police and the Attorney General's office would also do everything in their power to keep this guy in jail as long as humanly possible. This battle did not stop here, though, either, as it involved every level of government in Rhode Island, as well as the governors, state legislature, and courts themselves. It can be said that they bent the laws that the police and government were sworn to uphold in an effort to keep Price behind bars. Some had issues with this, but for the most part, Rhode Island citizens just wanted to see him behind bars. Luckily for all, this case changed the laws to allow juveniles to be tried as adults for serious crimes like this one. But it didn't allow for retroactive sentences, unfortunately. So, he stayed in jail.
Good.
Price would, for the most part, be a model citizen in the correctional school and would spend his time completing his high school equivalency tests and taking some off-site college courses. He was even rewarded for his behavior. He would end up being given the approval to counsel other residents. Let that sink in a little bit. So he was allowed to counsel kids at the school. And he was even given the clearance to perform minor security duties. This kid that just like fucking massively over brutally stabbed people. So this seems way off base for me. A kid that brutally murdered 4 females was given that chance. This special treatment enraged the public, though, and through this, a campaign was started to try and block his release. This campaign was headed up by the Assistant Attorney General, the police captain, who was the supervisor over the investigation of Craig. On top of this campaign, residents of the neighborhood and beyond started the group Citizens Opposed to the Release of Craig Price. They would also lobby for his continued incarceration due to just how horrendously brutal the murders were. It was the opinion of more than one state psychologist that he would always be a poor candidate for rehabilitation, and he would likely reoffend. I agree with that.
Yeah.
In 1992, Jeffrey Pine had his chance to make a difference as he was elected as the Attorney General. He flew to Quantico, Virginia to meet with the FBI to seek the advice of Greg McRae, a man that was a national expert on serial killers at the time. McRae had profiled hundreds of murderers and was an amazing repository of information. He would tell Jeffrey Pine in detailed reports that Craig Price was a special case. He was a human predator who showed no empathy or remorse for what he did, and it was in all likelihood that he would murder again. He would tell Pine that he had very rarely encountered anyone that was this violent. He was part of less than 1% of killers that were this frenzied. He also said to this point, society had absolutely no way to treat someone like Craig Price. The real odd thing in this whole case is that there is nothing in Craig's background that can explain the level of rage that he had. He was from a stable home with 2 parents that both worked to provide everything the children could need. This part was copied from Murderpedia.org via an article from the San Francisco Chronicle by Helen O'Neill. Wesley Prophet, Massachusetts, psychiatrist who examined Price on behalf of the state, wrote in 1990 that Price was a serial killer who was in a psychotic rage at the time of the murders. He is in dire need of extensive treatment. profit continued. And even then, he may not be in a position to be safely placed in the community. The reports were more tools for the state, Pine said, who were looking at everything. Getting back to the story now, the lawyer that was appointed advised Craig to refuse to do any more psychological testing early on, as he feared that this could end up keeping him in the slammer for the rest of his life. This ended up being terrible advice, though, as from this, the DA filed a contempt of court charge against him in 1994. This threw Craig off his rocker and into a rage. He would go on to threaten to snuff out the corrections officer, and Jeffrey Pine took this opportunity to file extortion charges. This may have been a stretch, as this is pretty typical language for youth prison situations, but this kid needed to stay in prison, so they jumped at every opportunity they got. We were dealing with a quadruple murderer who had threatened to kill again, Pine said, and we were going to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. The public was getting worried, as Craig's 21st birthday was on October 11th, 1994, and they were demanding a stop to his imminent release. Things got even more interesting when in May 1994, then President Bill Clinton flew to Providence, Rhode Island. He was greeted by mass protests demanding that the Warwick slasher stay behind bars. When he was pressed in a television interview, Clinton said that he thought it was outrageous that the kid could get out. This would all lead to a new bill passed by the Attorney General's office that would give them the power to commit a mentally ill person to a mental health institution if they posed any threat to society at large. This bill was called the Craig Price Bill, and it allowed judges to look at everything, including the person's criminal record, when considering committing a person.
That makes sense.
Yeah. On October 3rd, 1994, only days before Craig was to be released, they started his assault and extortion trial for threatening the life of one of the correctional officers. They knew that their case was weak, and they knew that the judge would not be swayed by public opinion, and had Attorney General's office worried. Craig Price also no longer had a crappy lawyer, but had Robert Mann, one of the state's most well-respected lawyers when it comes to civil rights advocacy. He would claim that the state was trying to use two sets of laws, one for his client and one for everyone else. Luckily for everyone involved, Craig is an idiot, and he sealed his own fate. No, really. He would deliver a rambling statement where he would say that he had paid his dues to society, and he was only being prosecuted because he was a black man. He was quoted as saying, "The media has once again done a good job of creating a monster." He said, his voice thundering through the stunned courtroom. Not just a boogeyman, but a black boogeyman. The judge got a glimpse, Young said, and that was all he needed. In the end, he was charged on these counts, and also violation of probation for his fights while in prison, and was given a 15-year sentence. Not happy to just take the sentence, though, he made sure to be a shithead inmate in adult prison, too. In February 1996, he would get into a fight with an inmate. It would go on to bite a guard when he tried to separate the two inmates.
Bit of a biter.
Yes.
Not everyone's into it.
This ended up in an assault charge, also with an extra year added to his sentence. Only a year for biting a fucking guard?
But did he enjoy it? That would have given him more years.
It's true.
The guard or the biter?
Yeah, trick question.
Good question for sure.
I said trick question.
It is. He would continue to assault prison guards on October 1998, February 1999, October 2001, and July 2009.
I think he's the one that likes it if he's doing it for his birth month almost every year.
Yeah. The assault in July 2009 came once again after a prison fight. Oh. The guard was stabbed in the finger with a prison shank that had been made by Craig.
In the finger?
Yes. Yes. This led to Craig Price being moved to a new prison. They were finally done with his shit. On March 2009, he was denied parole, luckily, and his release date was set to be May 2020.
Ooh.
Surprise, surprise, though, he would be accused of stabbing an inmate, Joshua Davis, at a Florida prison on April 4th, 2017. He stabbed him with a 5-inch prison shank that he had made.
In the finger.
Tonight, a Target 12 investigation you won't see anywhere else. Craig Price in prison.
In an exclusive interview, this man says he came face to face with a serial killer.
He opened the door and stabbed me in the chest, which knocks me down, and then he just jumped on me and attacked me.
Joshua Davis just served prison time with Craig Price in Florida and says he was nearly stabbed to death by the notorious serial killer.
So what does this latest violent outburst mean for Price's pending release? Target 12 investigator Tim White is here now with an interview you'll see only on Eyewitness News.
Believe it or not, Craig Price is about 2 years from potential freedom. For prosecutors here, the Florida case is high stakes. It was April 2017 when inmate Joshua Davis says he was in his cell at the Sewanee Correctional Institution when Craig Price snapped.
He attacked me and then he chased me out after I got out, attacked me again in the day room, and it took 2 officers and 2 inmates to pull him off.
Investigators say Davis was in bad shape when he was rushed to a local hospital. Price is accused of using a 5-inch homemade knife.
In the chest, in the head, twice in the back, twice on this side, in the spine, on the neck, and then lower on the spine also.
Price and Davis served time together for about 8 months, and court paperwork shows the incident was caught on prison video surveillance. But what prompted the shocking attack? Davis says he doesn't know.
That's one of the questions I've continued to ask is why. Because him and I never had a problem. I didn't even know about his past until after all this came out.
I think the scariest part is actually, I've seen the video now because it's online, and it's just such a rage attack out of nowhere. He just explodes out of his cell and just starts stabbing, and it's like, holy fuck, what is going on? Yeah. Like, you don't expect it.
Sounds like, what was it, Eric Smith with the explosive, what was it? What was it called? The disorder? Rage disorder that my kid had, my Ginger?
Ginger disease? I don't know.
Continue. Mm-hmm. Intermittent explosive disorder. So it's a mental disorder causing individuals to act out violently and unpredictably.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yep.
So this would saddle him with a new 25-year sentence for his crimes.
Wow.
So finally, like, he's probably never getting out, basically, at this point. Mm-hmm. So luckily for Rhode Island, it seems that Craig Price is dead set on making sure he will stay in prison for the rest of his life, as long or as short as that ends up being. You know, with having that kind of attitude, he probably won't last long in prison.
Yeah, or anywhere else for that matter.
Yeah, no, exactly. He can blame it on whatever he wants, but it's because he's a damaged human being. There's no doubt about it. You don't fucking rage stab people that much without being just a terrible human being. Mm-hmm. That's my story.
Wow.
It's like, at what point do you stop calling it rage and just, like, what he wants to do, though, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, where's that distinction or a difference, I suppose?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he was definitely a deranged kid.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that'll, at, like, 13 when he started, stab someone 50-plus times, you've got a serious problem at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then 2 years later to stab 3 people almost that many times each. There's something wrong with
but I can see the 3 people in the same event. I can see that rage, right? Where you're seeing red, you're just out of it, you're out of character, you're burping, you're just it's getting weird, and you just go for it, right?
Yeah.
But every event after that, I think he kind of sealed his fate at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Thanks for listening. You can find us at Brew Crime on Twitter. You can find us at Brew Crime on Facebook. You can also find our Facebook group at Brew Crime the Group. You can email us at brewcrime@pacificbeerchat.com. You can find us on all of the podcast apps. And if you can't find us, let us know and we'll try to get it there. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening.
And if you'd like to hear us make lots of mistakes, you should listen to the very, very end, because that's where they are.
Yes, all the bloopers are there.
Oh, yeah.
This episode, you'll hear a lot of me at the end.
It's a lot.
Just think massive 2 tits and just go there.
Massive 2 shits, massive 2 tits.
Yep.
One of those 2.
And we're good.
Yes. So thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo design was by Ben Greenberg. All cases and stories were written by Beck, Nina, and Mike, and our sources are put into the show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at brewcrime.threadless.com, where you can purchase swag like t-shirts, phone cases, beach towels, and all kinds of cool stuff. We can also be found on your favorite podcast apps, our hosts, Spreaker.com, or brewcrime.com, as well as at Brewcrime on Twitter, at Brewcrime on Facebook, at facebook.com/groups/brewcrime. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Pacific Beer Chat. Here is a promo from one of the podcasts on the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Network.
I'm Midnight Agent Raw.
And I'm Okami.
We are the Super Media Bros Podcast.
Each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
music,
television,
video games,
and much more.
Put your shades on and listen to all episodes on supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yeah,
Shades on.
We're off.
Now here is a promo from a fellow true crime or spooky podcast that we really enjoy. Hope you'll take a listen.
You've heard the stories of bloody murder and horrendous homicide. But what about the rest of the crimes people fall victim to every day? What about the forensic chemist who falsified evidence? Or the con man who pretended to be a surgeon? What happened to the rich men who kidnapped an entire bus of children? Who are the fraudsters, arsonists, bank robbers, drug lords, and more? I'm Lindsay, the host of Mugshot. Mugshot is a true crime podcast that brings you the non-murderous crimes you didn't know you needed to hear. Season 2 started in January of 2019, so come and join me by searching for Mugshot on your favorite podcatcher. Until then, stay out of trouble, or you may end up pictured in your very own mugshot.
Have you guys looked at the pictures of my asshole?
Nope.
What the fuck?
I have not looked at pictures
I haven't looked at
asshole.
pictures of your asshole.
I literally
I'm saving that for later.
I did see he...
I walked into that.
yes, you
backwards.
did.
That's how you saw it.
Yeah, exactly backwards.
Oh my god, I love it.
Yeah, no. He looks like a horrible person.
Good.
I didn't realize you guys were showing pictures now. Wow.
Getting close these days.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, I'm ready to get this over with.
What about your asshole?
It's ginger. It's not. It's...
Oh my God. I can't wait to cut that out for later.
4 days after Derrick's... Nope. I missed a paragraph.
Just that paragraph. So gotta throw out, whatever.
So around 11 a.m. Around 11 a.m. that day. What day, Nina? I said that okay. But the prosecution... Unpredictably. But the prosecution... Mumble. If you guys see my butthole, my asshole, I can't believe that happened.
Do you guys see that picture of my asshole? God, Nina.
Living the dream.
No!
Living.
Comment ever.
It's completely out of context. You guys are gross.
I can't wait for that to be clipped and saved for the end.
Poor Nina, that's not what she meant.
Or is it? Just joking.
Saving this too. Whenever you've seen her asshole.
You're going to take a picture of it next time. Be like, oh yeah, no, this is the pictures of my murder. And then be like, surprise, but. But wait. There's
But
more.
wait. Yes, but
Can we
wait.
stop talking about this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can. All right, let's do
On
this.
to Mary Bell.
This is the story of Mary Bell. God damn it, Amber.
Could you do that when we're just out loud?
I have to go to the bathroom.
Mario was... Nope.
Mario. Not to be confused with the Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Luigi?
Mary was... Nope. Nina
up
burned that one. Only 2 months passed after the first murder until... Oh.
I'm sure. 1 sec, okay. Pull my nose.
Sure.
Is that what it always sounds like? Doop, 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 doop. Usually sounds like it's all coming out, but yours is specific nostril at a time, like left, right, left, right, right. Nice.
Honk, 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 honk. Nay.
I am a murderer. That is where I killed. Are you fucking laughing, Amber?
It had nothing to do with that.
Okay. I'm gonna do it again then.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. A detective stationed outside of Brown... No.
Brown, no.
He decided to question Norma...
Mike.
Oh, of course.
Rude.
Whack, 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 whack.
I hate you guys.
That's horrible.
We love you.
I'm gonna wait. This is serious.
Nina. No? Okay.
No.
Don't worry, my story will ruin your good time.
I'm not having any time. I'm stressed out. My fucking chickens.
Maybe you shouldn't play that goddamn game then.
Yeah.
I can't. My chickens will die.
What the fuck?
What are you looking for?
The alcohol content.
15.5.
Ah, there we go. No. As Beck smells it to make sure she wants more.
Yep.
Are you going to leave any for us?
It's a one.
Here you go, Mike. Fuck you, Nina.
It's okay.
I like Nina. She can have it before me. She's not going to pour any anyway.
I like her. I just don't love her anymore.
Okay, that makes sense. She going to smell it first before she pours more?
And Nina poured herself roughly a thimble.
You're old enough to know what a thimble is, and I don't.
Oh, that's not an insult. I wouldn't be younger.
What? You are younger.
No, I mean I wouldn't go back to being younger. I'm happy to be the age I am.
True.
Anyways, back to this beer.
I'm just going to make this a little bigger.
That's what she said.
Little Viagra for my text. Oh.
It puts the lotions on the skins where it gets the holes again.
Oh, I'm saving that.
Oh,
dear. I feel so much better now.
I don't blame you.
So good, right?
He would live... Did you just...
You just scared both of us.
What just happened there?
I recorded it, and I thought I forgot this sound was on.
Oh, shit. Where was I?
It had a hint of chestnut. And I don't know. It's the first thing. It's the first vegetable I thought of. What a chestnut is.
Chestnut's not a vegetable.
It's a root something, maybe.
I'll be here all day, guys.
It's a nut. It's in the name.
Let me just fix it to say home, not hose.
She grew up in the hose.
Yes.
He was very thin.
He took a pocket knife,
nap.
Blah. He would go back to get more knives. What?
Fucking what is right?
You should laugh at that.
That's how I deal with awkward situations. Just
yeah, no shit. In the act of these murders, he did manage to cut his own hand, though.
His handed? Which one?
Yes. In the act of... I can't laugh. Wow.
You exaggerated, though. Mine's natural.
No, it's supposed to be exaggerated, yes, because...
You're an asshole.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You're an asshole.
You're an asshole.
Like,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Everybody's got your breath. You know what they say about big feet?
No, what do they say?
Big shoes.
Okay. Wish that they... Blah. Big dick, what? Yeah.
Or big socks. Fuck, you guys are weird.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck?
Amber!
He vowed that day that he...
I was like, my chickens! I forgot about...
There was a slight wrinkle in this case, though, as it was more than a little... there was a slight case... Fuck! There was like slight case in this wrinkle. It can be said that they were... It can be... it's this. I'm having trouble with. Let me just look over here. Wesley Prophet, a Massachusetts psychiatrist who examined Price on behalf of the state.
Was that supposed to be Massachusetts?
What the hell was that? That sounded like the world's longest word.
I thought I said it okay.
No. Massachusetts.
This was actually in Massachusetts.
What? I'm crying. You fucked that up so bad and you're just so casual.
Yeah. I was like...
I almost threw up in my sweater trying to hold it back.
Second show.
Okay, go.
Now I can't. Where was I?
Massachusetts.
If that is not really fucked up when I listen to it, I'm going to get mad at you.
It really did sound like one really big word.
It's like, why is the word lisp for people who have a lisp like Massachusetts? No, you fucked the shit up. You shit the bed on that word.
I fucked the shit out of it.
You fucked it with your...
Someone else was shitting the bed on that word, and you fucked them while they were at it.
It's a circle. I'm out of liquor and full of insults. Is there any beer left in that?
Yes.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Well, we need Nina.
His voice thundering through the stunned
It's like
courtroom.
you're mumbling statement right now. That's what he said.
Yes. He said his voice fuck. You can find us. God. You can find us on Brew Crime. I can't speak anymore.
Sorry, I smoked my ear with the thingy.
1 second. Let's just get the Facebook group right. That's how you laugh.
And it's on Brew Crime on Milwaukee. What was the word we were saying? Minnesota.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Massive two tits.
Massive two tits. You all suck.
You suck at pronunciation.
I suck at talking.
Words.